Now, I normally like going into the weekend in a good mood, but this one, well, it's bittersweet. It's good because we've got the finale of the Gilded Age in a couple of days, but that's also the bad news too. It feels like this season has absolutely flown by, but you know what they say, be glad that it happened rather than not at all, and I am. With the trailer for the final episode being released a couple of days back, and after covering that, I've now had a few days to simmer over a few final theories that I think could potentially happen in the season finale. So I thought I'd share them and see what you guys also think could happen too. So let's get into it. Here is the Gilded Age Season 2 Episode 8, 3 Major Theories Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The Opera War. The Opera War has been one of the main focuses throughout the show, albeit it sat on the back burner whilst the more intimate issues got dealt with, such as Forte's death, Marian and Dashiell's engagement, the opening of the Brooklyn Bridge, and Oscar losing the Van Ryn's fortune. However, it is the main event, and the main event it will be. With the Met and the Academy going head-to-head on the same night, it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening and which night proves to be a success and prevails. I'm giving a spoiler to the real events here, so skip ahead to the next section if you don't want to know who wins, as it could be present in the actual show. When looking at the history books, the Metropolitan was the one which actually reigned supreme on its opening night, and the Academy ultimately ended up failing, as more and more people converted over to the Metropolitan. So I wonder if this is something that could end up being replicated in the show. One would assume that that will most probably be the case. One sad thing about this though, is that the Met is no longer around in the city. It was demolished in the 1960s and replaced with a building for offices, something that feels like it's a real shame considering the history that it was associated with during the time. Within the show, I feel we could see some kind of controversy and trouble occurring on the opening night of the Met though. We know that Larry had a fling with Miss Blaine, and it's kind of been left behind since she didn't let him in his house. I wonder if she'll plan to arrive at the Met on the opening night and cause a bit of a scene, as she does know that he's going to be there. So her seeing him with Marian could cause her heart to hurt. There were rumours going around in the paper about their potential time together, but her presence at the Met and the scene that could be caused would confirm it, and it would get people gossiping about the Met and Bertha in a negative way. I also feel the truth about Mrs. Winston is going to come out on that night, and the fact that she used to be Mrs. Russell's lady's maid. Mr. Winterton doesn't know this secret, and they got banned from the Academy for it. So with Mrs. Winston most likely arriving and thinking that she's got the prime box in the Met, but George Russell interfering and mentioning how she's not to know that she's not got it until the night where she arrives, that could also cause another scene. In terms of the Academy, I think Mrs. Astor is going to realise that she's actually lost more people than she initially thought, and it will mark the beginning of the end of the Academy. It seems like she's going to feel as though she's secured the Duke, but I feel in a deal that Bertha is going to do with him, she's going to hand Gladys, her daughter, over to the Duke in terms of marriage in order to secure his attendance at the Met. As we know, he took an interest in her. So I feel Bertha will ultimately reign victorious, despite it maybe not going as smoothly as what she had hoped with some slight hiccups. Oscar's financial trouble and the repercussions. Something which it feels like could have multiple different outcomes in the season finale, and one with multiple repercussions is that of Oscar losing the Van Ryn's fortune. Oscar was part of a scam which was known at the time, which was centered around him placing an investment, getting a small return, and then being enticed to place more money down in order to get the same percentage of returns. In the finale, it looks like somebody from the bank is going to be meeting with Agnes, Oscar, Ada, and Marian. And it seems like the family is going to be informed that they have no money left, and there's nothing that can be done about it. This is all Oscar's fault. He knows it, and I think it's something that's going to weigh heavy on his mind. For the family, being a socialite is pretty dependent on the money and wealth that one has, and with that comes the acceptance from others from the inner circle. And with Oscar blowing it all, there's a chance that it could get out to everybody else within their circle and change things for good. No money means no way to pay the people that work for them, and no way of sustaining the type of lifestyle that they lead and uphold, meaning that nobody would want to be associated with them. So I think that is something that we could see occurring in the season finale. Word getting out that they've lost their fortune and it having devastating consequences for the entire family. From a financial perspective, but also a social perspective too. Marian is somebody who is humble, and somebody who I don't think it will impact to the levels of the others, due to the fact that she goes out, works, and is prepared to do that. Whereas the likes of Agnes, Ada, and Oscar, they won't be used to doing that, so it will hit them harder. There are a couple of different ways around it if they're solely looking for money. Agnes may need to marry again. She could look for a way of marrying into money and ensuring that their lifestyle is one that can be upheld, but it would mean that Agnes would need to change her ways. She's a strong, fiery, and fierce independent woman, and I don't feel she'd be able to be her true self if she was with somebody else. Another way would be for Marian to marry Dashiell, which looks set to be on the cards, and he'd be able to help out with the financial issues. Or Forte could have a hidden fortune that nobody knows about, and Ada could end up with that. Something which would allow the family to retain their position in society and also their home, but the balance of power would be switched. It would be handed over to Ada, something that Agnes may find quite difficult as she's been the leader, so to speak, for the entirety of their lives. In terms of Oscar, if they don't make it out of the mess that he caused, I think we could see him leave. He's already living a lie in the sense that he can't really be himself because of his sexuality. But the weight of what he feels will be ruining the family's lives, and knowing that he would just be an extra person in an already crowded ship, he may see it necessary to leave his family because he doesn't want to be a burden and cause them any more trouble. So this might be the beginning of the end of the Van Rijns as we know them. Marian's love triangle. Marian's love triangle is one that's provided a lot of excitement over the course of this season, and I don't think it's going to fall short in the season finale. We know that herself and Dashiell got engaged in episode 6 of the show, and it was something that it felt like Marian didn't really want. Her reluctance to say yes, the silence that was present before answering, and the lack of enthusiasm to make wedding plans spoke volumes. Well, at least to us as the viewers. We've seen her growing further and further away from Dashiell. Gone are the smiles that we saw in episode 1 and 2 when they were first going on dates together, and it's now turned to her almost being fed up with being around him. Pulling a face when she needed to get him tea, annoyance at the fact that he didn't view her teaching job as a real job, and also the sending of him away so that she could have some space on her own. Whilst it seemed like she didn't really want to be with Dashiell, the pressure for her to be with him may start to increase following the lack of money that the family are going to have. If she chooses not to marry, then she'll be penniless, just like the rest of her family. But if she does marry, then not only will she have some of the wealth and lifestyle that he leads, but he may be able to help the family, so the pressure is going to be on for her. However, it does seem like her true feelings are going to be coming out, and the feelings that we've seen getting developed between herself and Larry in this season of the show, with us seeing them going on a walk together following her finding out about Forte's death, and Larry looking to comfort her. It seems like they're going to be accompanying each other to the opening night of the Met, an evening where it feels like the sparks between the pair will go off. There's been small encounters between them both in this season of the show, and I think with us seeing Marian going to the opposition side when it comes to the Opera House war, I think it could be symbolic of her calling the wedding off and picking her side. And that is to be without Dashiell and looking to build a relationship with Larry. However, things might prove to be problematic when it comes to the loss of money, as we could see Larry and Dashiell both losing interest, as there would stand to be no wealth or status to be inherited upon marriage. As shallow as it sounds, it would most likely make them lose their appeal in Marian. Plus, for a fact, Bertha just wouldn't allow it. So the love triangle is very much dependent on if those issues that Oscar caused can get resolved. Whilst there are other stories that will occur in the finale of the season, I think these three will take the center stage and will keep the rhythm going and the increased pace throughout the runtime. What do you think the outcome of these theories will be? And also, what else do you think will happen? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.